The moment is upon us. Kairos has arrived. Hello everybody, and welcome to The Chains Wait. Here today, we will be going over a little bit of our continuity with Bioshock, Remastered, continuing to play that through, and alongside that, we'll also be taking a look at more of the notes, which I had accumulated and taken some pictures of, for the Threefold Manifold tabletop role-playing game. In particular, we will be starting with, on that side of course, finishing out the basic ability scores as we had started on it last time, particularly looking over some of the finer points of the sort of top level stuff, the top level stats. Then going on to the base ideas for the equipment and how it all scales, how it's all interrelated to itself, and then we'll be continuing on with how we will be denoting those insofar as their actual characteristics, as opposed to having something like, for instance, in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the sort of aspects that are applied to various items. But now, having said that, we are getting into our regular housekeeping. Very little to talk about as per the usual. We are still keeping on track with everything. For those of you who are anticipating the following week, that is, as I had established previously, the off week for me. So there will not be a stream that week, although we will, of course, keep up with putting out all of the audiobook stuff that we had recorded and is edited down, as well as any of the shorts, or rather all of the shorts, that come out as per usual. Usually about 2, sometimes 3, occasionally just 1, every single day, and all of that business. I will hopefully, with this additional time, on top of just being able to get through my regular stuff of life, also be able to start putting things up on BitChute and TikTok, and I'm maybe even considering Odyssey. We'll see how that in particular goes. But, without further ado, let us then get over to Bioshock, and we will see what there is to see. And again, as per usual, there we go. And yes, it looks like the game's audio is being recorded. That's a dandy and handy. Let's take a quick peek at that to make sure that it is coming in at the appropriate volume. I will say, of course, that recording this game's audio and everything was a bit loud these last 2 streams. And I have adjusted those filters down to a mere 35 decibels, so I believe it should be at about the right level. We're talking something like 30 or 40 decibels higher than that. But anywho, let's get into it. I believe we just, yes, got to the Smuggler's Hideout. Ah, yes. Nothing like the Atom Governor. Ah, nothing like a moist crack to hide in. I can't imagine that I agree. I can't imagine... Sure. I can't imagine that there was plenty, and still even is, a good sum of little hidey holes all throughout Rapture. That's actually been something that I very much appreciate about things like the Underdark in various settings, any kind of extensive network of tunnels and solids, such that you don't have immediate visibility on who and what is in a given area. It's actually going to be quite a significant portion of what's coming with my first setting, Thonica. Now, what did I just cross over there? Ah, well, you know what? Ah, there we are. Woo! Slamming an entire bottle of Merlot. Only to be met with, our most favorite of mechanisms. Man, I hope that was enough duration. It was not. We made it through. Okay. Of all of the games I've noticed that have had some kind of mechanic like this, to include even Mass Effect, I will say they've certainly put this minigame to its use. They've made it actually quite a valuable thing to invest in, if you want to get into it.
We all come down here. Figured we all be part of Ryan's great chain. Turns out Ryan's chain is made of gold, and ours are the sort with the big iron ball around your ankle. He's up in Fort Frolic banging fashion models. We're down in this dump yanking guts out of fish. Fontaine's promising something better. He's like one of us, you know? Like he's worked a day in his life. He says meet him at his fish packing joint at 11. I'll go, bring a couple of guys. Hey, it's not like things could get a lot worse.
That's a perfect microcosm of the inevitable result of populism. The appeal simply to the common people. It always comes up in these kind of aristocratically oriented societies. Regardless of how potentially good a system can be under a given system, no matter how potentially good a system can be under its prevailing aristocracy, that there is a comparative surplus which some in-group possesses to the exclusion of others, it will always drive forward a profound desire to meet them, to accrue the same amount, to experience the same extent. I guess so.
You've had your fun, but enough is enough. If you press that button, you'll learn what it means to truly be my enemy.
Well, I don't have much choice now, do I? Furthering the point, the exact response that Andrew Ryan had there to the threat of my aiding one of his opponents, avowed as he might be, the coercion of force to any individual will inevitably result in either full submission, which is not likely for one with their own exercise of will by habit, or utter rebellion. And once utter rebellion is struck, it's very easy to persuade others that one's position of authority is either not warranted or at minimum desirable. No matter the real position of the popular individual. Is that him? Can't even much do that. I suppose we shall try, eh? Wow, that upgrade really kind of fucks. Just regular machine gun rounds, too. Oop, that's bad, that's bad, that's really, really bad. Oh, no! They got me. I should have been hugging that corner more. Or advancing, either one. What's that? Oh, more Lutzons. Alright, let's try the hard push. Man, this environment's like Swiss cheese. Now, where's that spider splicer, eh? I don't feel like doing more hacking. Man, I'm glad I found that lockbox. Alright, let's go. Ah, you are there. Yikes. Well, I got him at least. I really would like if they had a health kit. Yep. Ah, shot right in the back. Should have known better.
You ooze in like an assassin, and then you try to sneak out like a thief. You're no CIA spook. Who are you? Why have you come here? There's two ways to deal with this.
Was it possible to get through?
Uncover it, or eliminate it.
Hang on, I gotta look this up. I have to know if that was just me not being quick enough, or if genuinely, like, there was something that could have been done. Is it possible to save Atlas in Bioshock? Let's see. Nope. Yep, okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Oh well, back to the game.
Get out and get to Arcadia! Jesus!
just need some supplies to get the ball rolling, and a friend to watch our back.
Man, he even sounds like a scumbag. That's incredible. How anybody considered him a leader of the people? That's kind of a stretch at best. Perhaps he really cleaned himself up for the public. What do those spider splicer organs do? Or Moira. I wonder if she was even in there properly. Whatever the case, it was genuinely a fantastic bait by Andrew Ryan. Grim is the necessity of war.
The Irish pork pie offered me a deal. I flip him Fontaine and I walk out of here. That simple. How do I know that fat fuck isn't Fontaine's guy? How do I know they're not all Fontaine's guy? Fontaine's got Adam and everybody wants it. Ryan's got a whole lot of talk and a nice suit. Even down here, any idiot can see which way the wind is blowing.
Ooh, on to Arcadia. I'll comment once we actually get there because I don't want to be interrupted. The Smuggler's Hideout was an important piece in connecting the overall story. It finally put all of the activity that we had been up to into a single moment. Finally, that climax, the reaching of a conclusion to the initial thread that got us from the Welcome to Rapture Metro all the way to the Smuggler's Hideout. In that there was a tremendous amount of In that there was a tremendous amount of strife, a great deal of emotional attachment to the characters for whom which we have some amount of common humanity, especially with the presentation that Atlas has been given in relation to his love for Moira in particular, and finally, the loss that we experience, if you have any amount of empathy or sympathy, really, that comes from it, only to be pushed forward into greater and greater unknowns in a place as narrow, claustrophobic, and abyssal as this.
Moira. Patrick. Ain't that just like Ryan? Waits until we're almost out, and then he pulls the string. We'll find the bastard. We'll find him, and we'll tear his heart out. I came to this place to build the impossible. You came to rob what you could never build. A hum gaping at the gates of Rome. Even the air you breathe is sponged from my account. Well, breathe deep, so later you might remember the taste. You get to the battlefield in the rolling hills. That'll take you straight to the devil himself. And then all debts will be paid in
that exchange puts the full weight of the dichotomy betwixt the ideal, the vision, and the corporeal. It is so terribly easy for those with grand visions to ignore everything that gets in their way. In fact, it's the very engine by which they attain such capacity to produce monumental accomplishments in the first place. But in the same turn, it also can be something by which the people who are participant in something as drastic as the architecture of an entire civilization must struggle in, around, and under an edifice of form emplaced upon the very strictures as ligatures unto themselves of the average individual's life, of the average individual's livelihood. Especially whenever id and self-direction, irrational self-interest, is put to the fore by the visionary versus the corporeal, the everyman. There is bound to be, when spiced with spite, there is bound to be endless struggle in a dialectic of bloodshed. And yet at once, as Andrew Ryan himself explains, this is all his vision. This is a genuinely beautiful area as well. A graveyard under the sea. I don't think you can get more phantasmal than that, really. Oh, and look at that. They did actually put some 3D models of buildings and wires out there. Ah, along with some animals. Recognizing the significance of the panels they wish to put here for the effect of God rays, if this were a real place, but also the strict game design aspects. In addition to our very first introduction to this area being the double chains within a coffin, the double great chains attached to the sides of a mausoleum, it makes it evident that the perspectives which are upheld by the great chain is one of death, static and unchanging, resistant to all development and evolution, and so it will inevitably compound a revolution. Liquid nitrogen, yo. Yes, please. I'm glad to see some of these smugglers' crates actually having something about. I am admittedly not excited to fight another Big Daddy in a place like this.
Christ, is somebody there? They're everywhere. Hey, can you help me, man? Help me out.
What are you waiting for, City? It's beautiful.
God, somebody help!
Seems like some flighters have started seeing ghosts. Ghosts? Ryan tells me it's a side effect of this plasmid business. One poor sod's memory is getting passed on to another through genetic sampling.
Christ, is somebody there?
Lunatics, rebellion, and now bleeding ghosts. Ain't life in Rapture grand?
The idea of mimetic implantation by genetics is a fascinating idea, something that we've seen touched on in things even like Metal Gear Solid, made explicit in Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. And very much something that I believe deserves more attention. As mimetics, memory, the genes of the spirit,
Christ, is somebody there?
are in and of themselves infinitely important.
Hey, can you help me, man?
For no one exists apart from the social web by which we have attained such a lineage.
Oh, Jesus, God, somebody help!
Alright, I'll go the other way. Bugger that noise.
The augmentation procedure is a success. The slugs alone could not provide enough atom for serious work, but combined with the host, now we have something. The slug is embedded in the lining of the host's stomach, and after the host feeds, we induce regurgitation. And then we have 20-30 times the yield of usable atom. The problem now is the shortage of hosts. Fontaine says patience, Thunderbolt. Soon, the first home for little sisters will open, and that problem will be solved.
Well, that's one way to get Adam.
What a night I got lined up. Everything's ready. Flowers, bottle of wine, even 2 tickets to the tea garden. Nothing gets the Betties in the mood like nighttime in Arcadia. Now I just gotta stop by the Thrifty Care to pick up a med hypo, just to be safe. Word is, this ain't Angelina's first visit to the tea garden.
Well. But,
Can you help me, man? Can you help me out?
yeah, I'll get to that in a second. What the hell? Oh. Between the administration of the Atom Slugs unto the Little Sisters, and the obvious commodification and casualization of sexual contact, of sex. It speaks to the... It makes commentary on the marketization of even the most intimate parts of the human experience, depriving them from the individualization of each such, the recognition of them as singular, and therefore of infinite value unto themselves. In juxtaposition with the utter dissolution of autonomy in a real sense, or every single interaction as such is not measured any longer as a singular unit, but instead as a mere part of a quantitative sequence of valuation. Of all the things in Rapture, I didn't anticipate to see the Green Man being represented. Oh, what up? It's a brilliant juxtaposition against it brilliantly pulls together the premise we had earlier of Steinbeck. It brilliantly strings along the notion of the ghosts as more than mere hallucinations with the note of Steinman. With the daimonia of Steinman by Aphrodite as such. That is a heinous muff. Good lord. A whole new type of splicer. Cool. Another unsurprising one, they're vulnerable to anti-personnel rounds. Is that the corpse talking? Ah, no, not quite. Putting the introduction of the Houdini Splicer in, as they have here, as a free agent with more wit than the average individual, also makes the encounters to come feel more unique, more particular, more original. Like there is a real place and a mode of operation that these splicers have carved out for themselves.
Today, Arcadia was closed off to all but paying customers. The man hires me to build a forest at the bottom of the ocean and then turns a walk in the woods into a luxury. Ryan asked, should a farmer not be able to sell his food? Is a potter not entitled to a profit from his pots? I started to argue with the man, and then I remembered who signed my checks. The only thing worse than a hypocrite is an unemployed one.
as I say, when you turn an economic eye to every single instance of life, you inevitably find yourself entrapped within it. Where no action becomes one simply of humanity. Of will, individually.
I swore an oath to do no harm, and I mostly meant it. I guess I'll see him when flu season comes around. Yeah. That's toxic. Stop it.
Oh no, he finally saw me. Simply, whenever you turn an economic eye towards every single piece of experience that exists, you will inevitably find yourself on the brink, if not the fruition, of turning each and every choice into one not of will and self-expression, but rather one of syntactic budgeting. Oh. Come from around that corner. Ah, this is not good. Not good at all. You stop that, will you? There you go. Oh, that's not good. I hope they can't shoot me around there. Come on then, I'm ready for you. Have at. Get some. That'll do. I think I got him. We'll find out anyway. Especially being so low health as I am. Ooh. That was almost very bad. Yeah. Let's see if we can race over there and take care of it. Looks like it. Alright. And up and to the right, and up and to the right, and up and to the right. Oh? Huh. I was sure that I had gotten it properly. There we go. Yeah, that should go. As you do. Wow, that could not have come in at a better time. How many anti-personnel rounds do I have? 4. Wow, they are not being sparing with the pistol ammo of all things. I'm not exactly flush with cash either. Up and up. Let's see. Bang on. Yeah. Not quite where I was hoping that to go. Feel my cravings for gravings, I suppose. That's the idea. Well, now. I wish I got dealt that hand earlier. I guess I will heal myself, huh? The sheer whimsy does get me. Okay, now... off we go. Oh, yo! Hello! And I wasn't loaded. Awesome. Where'd you go? Yeah, to the healing station. How effective did that go? This shotgun is just kind of mid. To be totally honest. There you go! Now that's what I'm happy to see. That simple leadhead splicer kind of doing me in there. For real, for real. Shan't forget to reload that time, that's for sure.
It's unsanitary in here.
Did you just shock the daylights out? Well done. Collected Dolans. 3. Can't just get around that, can I? And I know it'll do some big damage if I don't. Are those even attached, I wonder? Ah, almost missed a bit. Ah, that's film. I must ask what exactly the liquid nitrogen is for. Admittedly, I do not envy whoever had to take care of this place on the, horticultural. Oh no!
That's cute. Real cute.
I think so.
Oh, honey! Honey! Give me some mint now! Come on!
Cement?
Coward! You got nothing!
Where's that gun at that was firing? Ah.
You keep on thinking.
Well, at least it does something to them. Those lead heads, though, are awfully resistant. Stolens. Ah, there you are. Come on. I know why they did it. I really do. But at the same time, I wish that they gave the shotgun a bit more range. I guess we're gonna have... Ooh, napalm. I guess we're gonna have a hot and cold gun. I'm excited for that. That should definitely make things a bit more spicy. Apparently. You certainly put them out of the competition, anyway. Ah, and there's the Big Daddy. I do wonder how they managed to get... I do wonder how they managed to get lamps. I do wonder how they managed to get plants that are resilient to all of the dim lighting that is being provided by this very insignificant, small skylights in the ceiling. My best guess, especially with those down here, at least attempting to explain a... Oh. At least attempting to explain a level design decision, is that they must be lamp plants. They're not often considered because they are so obscure by the very nature of them. But they're plants that have adapted to a much, much lesser intensity of wavelength of light. Not making it easy on me here. Properly holding up to the... Properly holding up to the hardness level that I picked. Human Inferno? Interesting. That's very situational. None of these are really ticking the box, I'll be honest. I guess that'll do.
Freeze your enemies. Shatter them into 1,000 pieces.
Yikes. You know, that would probably actually be much more useful.
Distract your enemies. Buy yourself time in dangerous situations.
That's really speaking to Fontaine's feelings earnestly. I guess I'll do Vending Expert too. But to what I was trying to get out earlier, lamp plants are specifically adapted for places with lower intensities of light, as in the wavelengths are much less intense.
Rolling Hills is over yonder, and the bathysphere station is as well. And then straight on to Ryan.
Cool. As in, we're further away from ultraviolet light. Well, that would explain all of the supplies that we've been acquiring. I don't think I can craft anything, though. Yep, nope. Absolutely none. But I do wonder, give us that ammo. I do wonder what hacking it will allow us to get up to. That one. Up and over, and... oh, there's another straight pipe. And there is... if I could connect that, that'd be great. Okay. Still can't make anything. Ooh, another hypo.
What? Are you there? The nurse does it.
I feel like there's a ton of stuff I'm probably missing from down here. I can really see why this would have been a main attraction for a ton of people. More liquid nitrogen. Have we gotten back to our original spot? I don't think so. The Plasmid Blues. Well, if you didn't get the message earlier from Atlas, or that other fellow on the...
You might hear things about me, see my name about, think what you will. There was a time I cared about politics, but it's just an excuse men use to kill one another. I'm done with all that. I just want to see the sunlight again.
Can't say you're wrong. What was I saying, though? Completely distracted from that train of thought. Oh boy. That was more effective than I thought it would be. Glad for that. I surely...
On the surface, I once bought a forest. The parasites claimed that the land belonged to God and demanded that I establish a public park there. Why? So the rabble could stand slack-jawed under the canopy and pretend that it was paradise earned. When Congress moved to nationalize my forest, I burnt it to the ground. God did not plant the seeds of this Arcadia. I did.
That's a hellaciously spiteful position to take. Understandable, for the fact that you are the one who invested all of the resources into it, and therefore you have a significant stake in it. But that can lead to some heinous results if you were to universally apply that. Especially when that destruction does come at the consequence of many another thing. I wonder what all of this is supposed to be unto. Now I have rooted through here already. I think I'll explore the top side before I start looping. Don't quite want to go to the glens yet. Okay. Don't quite want to go to the glens yet. The tree farm? Interesting. Now you're who I was looking for. Nice, nice. What's your health at, eh? I have a good sum of electric buck, that's nice. All healed up. Unfortunate. I'll just kite you. Have at you. I'm gonna swap that. I'm real glad they're not brilliantly, bright.
There has been tremendous pressure to regulate this plasmid business. There have been side effects, blindness, insanity, death. But what use is our ideology if it is not tested? The market does not respond like an infant, shrieking at the first sign of displeasure. The market is patient, and we must be too.
When we look at the results of any given market, there is a panoply of positions one may take. I am generally of the opinion that the aims of any policy, economically, ought to be a reflection of reality. And if the reality is such that there is an obvious confluence of negative results, consequences, then a commensurate response should be taken. I do not consider it merely a subjective opinion to state that there should be rational responses to evident concerns in a market. Where is that little sister? I guess he never went to get it. That's a waste. Quite a scornful loss, actually. No chance. No chance at all. Where are you? In the floor. You are a problem. And I am short on buck. Open, 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 open. Ooh. Yikes. Yeah, that's fine. Lay your mines. That should do it. Alright. Yes, I'm sorry for your loss. But worry not. You'll get a proper return. Now, where are you? Where have you gone off to? There you are! Alright.
Even in the gathering dark, you light a candle. You have saved the little ones when you might have shown your cruelty. I am sending something your way to demonstrate our thanks.
At the Gatherer's Garden. How charming. That's too charming. I think that will be perfectly fine, actually. Don't think I need any help there. But I'll take another plasmid slot since I just have so much.
Light up foes to 1,000 degrees. Warning, fire spread.
Now, having gotten through all that, we are over an hour into the actual game. I think I'll get this here. And then... I'll try the Winter Blast, just for the sake of it. But we've been playing this for about an hour. I think it's about time to get over to some of the developments that we've been working on. Transition over here. Get our images pulled up. And hopefully, yes, it looks like the cropping and padding has stayed. So what we're looking at here, let me actually zoom out here. And there we go. Actually, we should come down here. So what we're looking at here, let me actually pull that back up, zoom a little bit in so that we can actually get the full detail. So what we're looking at here is the proper order of ascent for the threefold manifold ability scores. We have here the P, that is for physique, being recognized as niched, specialized, modularized, generalized, and universalized. What these are the total levels of our ability score as such. As we covered it last time, all of the points that can be acquired in the physique section, that is power, process, and precision, ultimately add up into the physique stat. That stat comes out to 1 of 5, in addition to any scope that we might apply to it. Where the niched is ultimately very limited in its applications, its design is itself very particular. That which is specialized is more free and available to abide more environs and more situations. That which is modularized has multiple specialized components in and of itself. This is generally where most things on the level of macroscopic animals will dwell. Think all of the individual specialized and niched cells and organelles that compose a human, for instance. That which is generalized is better able to survive in just about any environment. For instance, in a very small scope, yet still following the principle, water bears, tardigrades, are a perfect example of those which are able to exist in even the most extreme environments with relative ease. And finally, that which is universalized is something that is able to either adapt its very physique to any given situation, encompassing all of the previous and building up, or genuinely is just about independent of any resources that it cannot itself produce or manufacture. Let's see here. That would be on the other page. That's probably, yes, that's for intercatenation. The I here stands for intercatenation. You have the fixed, variable, adaptive, central, and dispersed ratings. The fixed rating indicates that a subject is limited in its entire process of cognition to a to a static routine. There is nothing at all that can change within the framework of... There's nothing at all that can change. You can think like a microchip-based circuit board, for instance. That which is variable has some opportunity to make... That which is variable has some opportunity to make some decisions unto itself. Think perhaps an algorithmic machine that it has the opportunity to make some decisions based upon contextual circumstance. That which is adaptive, you can think more like that which is adaptive rests more in the area of, again, humanity or artificial intelligence. It is capable of... rests more in the... That which is adaptive is more correlative to, for instance, an artificial intelligence, a neural network, as we are coming to be increasingly familiar with them in the realm of AI today. Something that is central has a... Something that is central has all of the options of the previous bundled in and able to be called upon as the situation demands, like humans, for instance. And that which is dispersed has several centralities pushed out across a... perfusing a body, a physique, to some extent. Where there is no singular entity that is responsible for... Where there is no mass entity that is responsible for one's intercatenation, and rather, instead, it is able to draw upon many different spots. It is able to draw upon many different centralities. Portions of their means of cogitation to the ends of culminating, to the ends of putting together all of those capacities into a single, to the ends of resolving a singular function. Metataxis comes in the levels of... And here we come to a same kind of issue that I was facing previously. That paper does not like to let go. And it, as you can see here, I was naturally going through various words here as I was developing it. Ah, there we go. For the stat of metataxis, you have that which is introduced, extraduced, interduced, transduced, and ultraduced. Per the prefixes themselves, that which is introduced is that which takes itself, is that which pulls in the necessary forms and matter to compose it, pulls in the necessary forms and matters in order to keep itself, pulls in the necessary forms, matters, and domains that enables it to exist. That which is extraduced is able to push out at least forms, although it may not have its own matter to maintain any kind of physique or intercatenation. That which is introduced is something that is between all of these. It may have some of its own form and some of its own matter, but ultimately it does not have its own domain yet. That which is transduced is not only in possession of its own matters, forms, but also it is not only in possession of its own matters and forms, but also its own domain. And finally, that which is ultraduced is as the Panatrivium itself. It stands by itself, of itself, and for itself, not contingent upon any matters, forms, or domains whatsoever. And looking at the advantage and disadvantage increments, these are intended to abide alongside the given ability score. As you can read here, well, I say that, as you may be able to read, that which is the higher your score, going point by point, 1-to-1, you are given an increasing or decreasing increment of 10 added to the result of your rolls. That is to say, you are trying to get as close to as possible. That is to say, you're trying to get as close as possible to 100 in order to achieve a given effect. And if you have more in a particular ability score that you're rolling on the point of, you will come closer to accomplishing the given task more consistently each and every time. This is in relation to my idea. This is in relation to having the main set of die for the threefold manifold ttrpg be 2d10s. I think that there's a lot of value in using 2d10. I would argue there's a great deal of value in using 2d10s versus the more common d20 or even multiple d6 method. Ultimately, you can use them not only as individual sets of 10 for whatever you may need to roll, including something perhaps like damage or the resistance that you're making against a given effect, but also the ability to roll it as in simulating a D100. And if there's anything that I believe we as players and as game masters have the innate ability to ratio and come to a decision on, it's not a scale of D20s, it's not a scale of D6s, it's portions of 100. And that is continued on with rolling at top or bottom, percentile allows plus or minus 10 extra / intra. Does that say there? Yes. On final roll. Can repeat more than once a roll. And this comes into the next page. Roll extra intra. Oh, I see that I have this out of order here. What a curiosity. Ah, no, I do have it in order. Roll extra intra. Roll extra intra with 1d10 above or below 100% range makes for something commensurately game-changing or plus minus that can be banked. That's my idea of the inspiration system and critical successes or critical failures sort of rolled into one. This definitely requires a lot more expounding in the actual final version for the game mechanic, in the final version for the mechanic itself. But the core idea here, to more broadly decompress it, is that, once more, the closer you get to 100% or 0, the closer you are to making a critical success or a critical failure. If you have a critical success, the increments of 10 determine how much more, or, on the flip side, less you succeed in a given thing. In a given action, reaction, or interaction. For instance, if you have a difficulty class, that's just the generic title that I'll be using because it's generally familiar. If you have a difficulty class of 50, and you succeed by rolling at or above 50, so much so that you push past 100, you will have your interaction, your activity, pay off in increments of 10. If you have, for instance, a 110 as your final score, it will make a resounding success for whatever you've attempted. If you're going for instance, if you roll in the 20th percentile, if you roll 120 to 129, you will have something of a spectacular success that not only bleeds from the thing you rolled for, that bleeds not only into what you rolled for, but also what happens from your success in that. Bleeds not only into what you rolled for, but also the results of your tremendous success. If you roll 130, if you roll 130, not only will the thing itself be accomplished drastically well, and the effect rendered from that be drastically successful, and the effect rendered from that be drastic as well, but also the situation of the story can shift around such a pivotal success, turning every roll, potentially, from something that's just interesting in the moment, something that might be an ephemeral failure or success, critically speaking, but makes it a piece of the entire narrative, and so on and so on. The idea here being, and besides that, if you happen to roll, and besides that, if you get above 100% and you want to maybe save that for something more important to you, rather than say, I roll to make a ham sandwich, and you end up with 150%, you end up with a 150 as your total, and that turns out to be a pivotal moment for the game. It acts something like inspiration, mechanically, rather than purely on the basis of what your game master might feel is important or not, purely subjective, and can expend it there. And that's about that, I believe. Finally, we move over to scale. You can see here we have the loud vehicles, as ever. Wow. They're loud enough that even through the noise gate it's picking it up. I love cut mufflers. But finally, and now looking at it, we have the scale. You can see that it operates from a 0 to 9, accommodating the full range of 10. And this is ideal, and this is envisioned as perhaps adding increments of 10 to that 2d10 roll. But, of course, that is a rather cumbersome method. The basis of it was using as the regular grid, because I think that because while having free measurements, like with a measuring tape, is a really, really good idea, and there's even some implementation of that in virtual tabletops. As far as I understand it, the overwhelming majority of people still prefer a grid system just for the straightforward simplicity of it. Well, the easiest way to do that, I think, is in squares. As much as I do enjoy hex grids, and I think that they are superior for many kinds of balancing resolutions and considerations, having a simple rectilinear 1 meter by 1 meter base as where we start at for accounting every metric, for accounting every behavior, is just really easy by comparison to other methods. Especially for those that are not playing on a system that admits of free measurement. I think and I choose the meter and the Systems International metric. And I choose the meter and the metric system on the basis that it is not only very scalable, it's intuitable in the regard of it's intuitable as to how each and every measurement stacks if you have even a passing familiarity with it, but also it's international. It's everywhere. Even in the United States, we have metric labels on just about everything, even if our individual parts are still measured in imperial. But as to the increments themselves, I do believe that having 10 scales is a bit much. I'll almost certainly collapse these down into 5 so that we can have a more easy time of employing it. That way you don't have to memorize 10 separate points, 10 separate scales. But you can see the overall idea here. There had to be a certain cutoff point where something is so small that it's not even really meaningful to represent it on a grid, to something that is so big that it becomes something that a grid is placed on itself. And that is why we have this as microscopic, to account for that threshold, submillimetric, subcentimetric, subdecimetric, submetric, subdecametric, subhexametric, subkilometric, And finally, environmental, to account for the upper threshold. This is, as I mentioned, meant to be comparative, the scale itself. The scale itself is intended to be comparative. If you have, for instance, something that is microscopic, attempting to go up against the physique of something that is just metric, it's able to be measured in... It occupies a volume of less than a cubic meter. Like a human being. It would not be exactly a fair fight, so you would anticipate there to be some commensurate reduction in their efficacy, if it's even considered possible at all. If you were to, for instance, and I am considering overall disqualifying any kind of... And I am considering disqualifying certain ideas of roles. As I said there, if you are trying to square off the physique of something microscopic versus something that is measured within a cubic meter, you're probably not going to get a fair result. Then you're probably not going to get a rational outcome. For instance, if an amoeba is attempting to push against an animal, push against a house cat, it's not really going to measure out reasonably. It's not really going to come out to any kind... It's not really going to come out to a noteworthy conclusion. The amoeba is definitely not winning. Unless something incredible happens. And likewise, if an entire battleship tries to land on... If an entire battleship attempts to make a counter of precision against a fly, it's not comparable. And so necessarily there would need to be some kind of restriction that is reflected within the rule set. But you can get the base idea of it here and how important it is. Besides that, in addition to this, we have all... In addition to this, let's get that pulled up, pulled to the side here. In addition to this, we also need to account for not only the individual in its bare, unadorned form, but also anything that they might be picking up, carrying, what might go into an inventory of sorts. So, we need to take note of the categories of equipment. And this is intended to, of course, as well be universal, much as scale and the ability score metric. To start off with, on the pre-zeroth level, the -1. The -1. The negative first order. You have minor, major, and mass. Something that is minor. Something that is minor is a very, very is a is insubstantial on the scale that it's being dealt with, but it's not something like a powder or a mist, or like a powder or a gas or something else that only or something else to which fluid dynamics would apply. Something that is major, on the other hand, would definitely be more would definitely be more handleable on the scale that it's considered. And finally, something that is mass is like an oil, a goop, something that flows and is contiguous. The zeroth order of passive, triggered, or active accounts for something that is passive, triggered, or active, accounts for the mechanism of the object. It is that which is passive has no active effect. It is ultimately inert within the boundaries of what it's composed of. The something triggered, on the other hand, is not in and of itself participating in some form of, is not in and of itself enacting anything independently. It must be interfaced. Even something as simple as like a grenade in a pen is something, for example, like the lead in a pencil. Unless and until the plunger is pressed on the back of a mechanical pencil, then it's not doing anything. A prime example being a mechanical pencil. Unless and until the mechanism of the plunger is pressed on the back, it's not doing anything. And after it's been triggered, and the motion is complete, that's all. It's manual. And finally, and that which is active is doing something unto itself. It has a degree of automation, whether it be so simple as a torch that is burning, a torch that is burning because a flame was put to it, or as intricate as an electromechanical complex. Then we have, finally starting the first order of categories, there is the wielded, mechanic, and powered. That which is wielded is something that is something that is inert, unmoving, is something that is purposefully designed to be worn or handled or otherwise interacted with directly by an individual subject. That which is mechanic follows a particular course unto itself, but yields very little in the way of self-determination. And that which is powered is... I see, I've confused them. That which is wielded has absolutely no integration with any kind of... That which is wielded is the most regular and... That which is wielded entirely relies upon the construction of... entirely relies upon the bulk construction of the object to fulfill its design's purpose. That which is mechanic employs some amount of regular physic processes in order to attain its purpose, and that which is powered calls upon electricity, historio, or some other means to accommodate an ends. To accommodate its ends. Something that is light in the light, medium, and heavy range, that is for the kind of object that it is. That which is light. That which is light is built in such a way that it embodies the minimal amount of material unto its purpose. That which is medium is more the average prototypical exemplar, and that which is heavy is overbuilt for its kind of purpose and design. The accidental, coincidental, or substantial portion, the accidental, coincidental, or substantial range denotes an object. Denotes an object's dependency. This relates to the metataxis. The accidental, coincidental, and substantial range relates to the metataxis insofar as its contingency. Something that is accidental. Something that is accidental ultimately is very subject to the metataxi that it inhabits. Ultimately is very dependent upon the metataxi. Ultimately is very dependent upon the category of metataxi that it fulfills. Ultimately is very dependent on the category of metataxi that it occupies. Something coincidental is more at least maintains its own form, if not matter. And finally, something that is substantial ultimately calls upon its own objectification in order to maintain itself. That's rather in conflict, isn't it? Ah, yes, I recall what that's about. The accidental, coincidental, and substantial range relates an object's longevity. Something that is accidental is passing and ephemeral. Something that is coincidental is more a constructed arrangement, whether it is through natural processes or through artificial fabrication. And finally, something that is substantial Something that is coincidental is more by happenstance. It's not necessarily brought together by any kind of intentional artifice, but more by natural processes. And finally, that which is substantial is artificial. And finally, that which is substantial is either produced in the long term, and finally, that which is substantial is more. And finally, that which is substantial is put together by either natural processes, which keep it around for a very long time, or artificial fabrication with the same intent. In the microtaxic, mesotaxic, and macrotaxic range, this calls directly back to the ability scores. That which is microtaxic is all matter unto itself. That which is mesotaxic is all form unto itself, and that which is macrotaxic is that which is both form and matter combined together to maintain its own object. The physic, intercatenic, and metataxic scale ultimately accounts for what it is built in. The physic, intercatenic, and metataxic scale, the physic, intercatenic, and metataxic range denotes an object's medium in which it exists. This is in order to account for not only tangible objects. That which is physic is ultimately a concrete object. That which is intercatenic is an abstract object. And that which is metataxic is a transcendent object. Is a transcendent metalogic object. And all of that accounted for the precedent. And all of that accounted for the precedential ideas that I had worked on. As a little side note here, while I was working on these, you probably noticed a little bit of Marginalia here. I wanted to see if I could combine the characteristics of a Karambit with the... I wanted to see if I could combine the... You probably noticed a little bit of Marginalia up here, too. I was trying to, while working on the things to the left and... I was trying to, while working on the things to the bottom left... I was trying to, while working on the things to the left of it, combine the benefits of the hook in a Karambit with the virtues of a thrusting blade. I definitely don't think that either suffices, but it is something that I'd like to continue thinking about. But it is something that I would like to continue researching and creating at least some basic designs for. If you have any ideas, let me know. If you have any ideas, or this exists already, please let me know. And as we were organizing the basic ideas and orders of our categorization, and as we were formalizing And after just getting the broadest sweeps of our inventory's categories put down, I started to make motions. I started to take some time to organize them into their own separate elements, into their own separate sets. To start with, we have the grows. On the To start with, we have the gross aspects. That's the physic, intercatenic, metataxic, point, propagation, and area, passive, triggered, and active. And you can see that I reformed a good sum here. Much as with the following. The physic accounts for the born, mechanic, and powered, percussive, divisive, and disruptive, light, medium, and heavy. The intercatenic accounts for the automatic, perceptual, rational, pacifying, altering, and aggressing, covert, communicative, and overt. The metataxic includes the microtaxic, mesotaxic, macrotaxic, accidental, coincidental, and substantial, linguistic, logic, and metaphysic, where the net takes up the weight, work, and worth, passive, persistent, and permanent, and static, starting, or stopless. And let's dig into each of these. That in the aspect of gross. With the physic, intercatenic, and metataxic, very much follows on from what I had previously put down in the above section. But well, I suppose I should probably explain the idea of gross. That which is gross takes into account the overall notion, the overall point or notion of an object, how exactly it operates, if at all. So, the physic, intercatenic, and metataxic ultimately is the same as put down above. It accounts for the tangibility, the concreteness, abstractness, or objective. The point, propagation, and area, on the other hand, takes note of the way that it operates, if there is any operation at all. Whether we're looking at, for instance, a piece of gum, or it is a flowing material, or it ultimately covers a very large expanse. Something that might be a point is a bead, a single contained object, a single self-contained object, that which is propagative, that which is covered by propagation, is like a, how should I put it? Is again like a bag of sand or a bag of ball bearings or some such. And finally, that which is an area accounts for like a plank of wood. That which occupies a point is perhaps like a bead, a grain of sand, a very small, self-contained entity. That which is propagation, that which is covered by propagation, more fits like a bag of sand, a bag of ball bearings, a jar of some kind of fluid or a can of compressed gas. And something that covers an area is more like a cloud, a board, a garment. And once more, that which is passive, and to reiterate that which was before, that which is passive is, and to reiterate the previous, cars. And to reiterate the previous, a passive object is that which is inert by itself. Triggered is that which is passive, does not do anything purposive by itself. That which is triggered does have a means, does have a mechanism. That which is triggered does have a mechanism to do something more purposive. And finally, that which is active is self-directing. The physic group does modify some of the aforementioned. The first being something that is born rather than wielded. That means that it is ultimately designed, or that means that it is ultimately designed for the point of being worn, carried, or otherwise put into action by an individual, by some kind of organism. That which is mechanic. Updating and modifying the category of that which, updating and modifying the category of wielded, we have born. This means that its purpose is supremely to be. This means that whatever its purpose was intended to be is primarily. This means that whatever its purpose is demands an individual organism to employ it by manual force. Something that is mechanic utilizes physic element. Something that is mechanic utilizes physic. Something that is mechanic uses something that is physically. Something that is mechanic relies upon physic principles in order to accommodate its design. And finally, that which is powered. Something that is mechanic ultimately relies upon. Something that is mechanic relies upon base physic premises in order to accomplish. Something that is mechanic ultimately relies upon gross mechanic physic laws to accomplish its ends. And that which is powered ultimately uses either historic methods or something like electricity or steam in order to fulfill its design. If it has any such purpose within the range of percussive. If it has any such purpose within the range of if it has any kind, by necessity of if it is put to such a purpose, the range of percussive, divisive, and disruptive pertains to the sort of damage that it would inflict, primarily. The sort of damage that it would inflict, primarily. Something percussive is intended to hit something, and that be its primary means of effect. Something that is divisive relies upon cutting, chopping, slashing, or piercing. Something disruptive ultimately attacks the structure of a thing, either through chemic, thermal, or some other transformative process. In the light, medium, heavy range, something that is light, again, ultimately fulfills a role. Something that is light is ultimately put together in a way that is atypically minimalized from its baseline. That is atypically minimalized in terms of its base prototype. Something that is medium fits that prototype within a fairly regular tolerance, and something that is heavy is to the maximal, and something that is heavy is more on the maximal side, and something that is heavy is more on the maximal side of that prototypical range. The intercatenic group accounts for any effects that might be rendered. Accounts for any of the effects that might be accounts for any kind of psychologic effects, accounts for any kind of logic, accounts for any kind, the intercatenic group accounts for any kind of, the intercatenic group accounts for computational or psychologic effects that might be a part of an object's purpose. In the automatic, perceptual, and rational realm, in the automatic, perceptual, or rational range, the automatic applies predominantly to one's instinct, the innate characteristics that they have to bear. The innate characteristics that are a part of such a system. The perceptual modifies the senses. The perceptual affects the senses of a given object. The perceptual affects the senses that might be produced. The perceptual regards that. The perceptual accounts for any sensory output that might. The perceptual modifies any of these signifiers that might be received by an interpreter. And the rational notes any amount. And the rational interacts with any and the rational interacts directly with the intellectual or and the rational interacts directly with the logical or reasoning of a subject. And the rational interacts directly with the logic or reasoning of a subject. The pacifying, altering, and aggressing range takes note of what kind of primary effect might be rendered. That which pacifies, sedates, soothes, or otherwise minimalizes. Cars. Or otherwise minimalizes the activity that is targeted. That which alters might blend pacifying and aggressing in order to attain a particular result or otherwise change or otherwise modify the path altogether or otherwise modify the path of some or otherwise modify the path of its target altogether. That which is aggressing seeks to raise up the or increase the targeted activity or action. The targeted activity or process. The covert communicative and overt range I'm trying to think of a way to say that it encapsulates. That's the word. The covert communicative and overt range encapsulates the disposition of an approach. That which is covert is ultimately attempting to not be noticed by its target. That which is communicative may not be trying to take the exact. That which is communicative may not be trying to gain the attention or hide itself, but rather to enable some sort of back and forth. And that which is overt is trying to be noticed. And that which is overt is attempting to make itself the center of attention. The metataxic group takes the metataxic group. I see. The Metataxic group notes the Metataxic group the Metataxic group circumscribes anything that might have a metataxic. The Metataxic group circumscribes anything that might have a relation to panatrivial substance. That which is microtaxic. The range of microtaxic, mesotaxic, and macrotaxic accounts for the range of microtaxic, mesotaxic, and macrotaxic corresponds to whether something is predominantly material, formal, or object. The accidental, coincidental, and substantial range. The accidental, coincidental, or substantial range. Notes whether something is unintentional. Notes whether something is unintentional. Notes whether something is simply a result. Notes whether something is simply a result. Notes whether accidental simply. The accidental, coincidental, and substantial range takes the accidental, coincidental, and substantial range details whether it is simply details how it came about metataxically. Something accidental is just Something accidental is just a product of greater processes. Something that is coincidental is one such process, and substantial is one such process. And something that is substantial is the actual root of the such processes. And new to this, the linguistic logic and metaphysic range. And new, the linguistic logic and metaphysic range takes And new, the linguistic logic and metaphysic range. Informs the mode of which it is specifically constructed metataxically. informs the mode that it was constructed metataxically. A linguistic construction is an application of dialectophores. A linguistic construction is an application of metaphor. A linguistic construction is an application of dialectophores, specifically in the way of language. A linguistic object is specifically constructed through the... A linguistic object is constructed of the... A linguistic object is constructed of dialectophores applied as though they were A linguistic object is... A linguistic object is an... A linguistic object is an application of dialectophores, specifically in the mode of language. A logic object is applied as... A logic object is built on the premise... A logic object is an application... A logic object is an application as though they were directly logical themselves. A logic application is an... A logic application... A logic application applies dialectophores in a... A logic application puts them to... A logic application puts them to formula. A logic application puts them in a formulaic way. A logic application puts them in a formulaic method. And a metaphysic object uses dialectophores to convey and a metaphysic application combines both linguistic and logic elements to convey physic properties. I appreciate that, Egg. But actually, I'm just recording the explanations I'm working on for the ttrpg. Since all of this will get cut down into shorts for the highlights, it's all about getting the wording right for each. At least in a way that properly conveys the ideas. Very similar to how I record the audiobooks. Sometimes it's just a matter of wrapping your head around a specific piece. Like whenever I'm doing my commentaries on them. And that's basically what I'm doing here. The streams tend to net very few views anyhow, so I might as well put them to their own worth. Which brings us right over to the group of net. The net group. The net group accounts for all of the details of the previous. The weight, work, and worth range. The weight, work, and worth range looks at the top level of the object. Something's weight is its mass, something's work is its energy value, and something's worth is its gramoscalar value. I can see why you might be worried, Egg. Yeah. Thankfully, the chat is working, as I see your messages here. But Uh, yeah. Yeah, it's all good. I'm just doing the bit. The part where people might be most interested in my personality anyway is likely in the gameplay, where this is all the behind the scenes, the BTS, for the development shiz. Which already is niche anyway. Yep, I am absolutely stroking out somebody call it bondulance. The passing, persistent, the passing, persistent, and permanent. The passing, persistent, and really, I wouldn't. Okay. The passing, persistent, and permanent range takes note of. So you see, Egg, a large part of difficulty in this is not repeating myself because, you know, synonyms exist and you ought to use them when you have the opportunity. Relays how long something is around, not so dissimilar from the previous interpretation. What's that? Not so different to the previous interpretation of the accidental. Not so different to the previous interpretation of the accidental, coincidental, or substantial range. Instead, here a passing object is something that comes and goes with great haste. It's momentary. It's momentary. Something persistent sticks around for a little bit. Something that is persistent has the tendency to stick around for at least. Something that is persistent tends to stick around for a non-negligible amount of time, and something that is permanent. Something that is persistent sticks around for a good long. Something that is persistent sticks around for a good long time, enough to be employable in general operations, and something that is permanent is. And something that is permanent is usually going to be. And something that is permanent is bound through metaphysic law. You ought indeed use those synonyms. You're right. I agree. I think that, well, I mean, if you look at the documents that I've been working on even here, it's really just a matter of finding various synonyms for what exactly we're trying to convey. Something that not only fits the theme, but the motif in and of itself. And if you divorce conception from language, not only do you tend to end up with very boring and mundane conversations, but you also lose a great deal of expressive capacity simply because your exercise of the vocabulary is so minimal or otherwise limited. Instead of facing those pitfalls as a human with the opportunity to utter how I would like, I think that for myself and for anybody around me who also wants to have the full spice and flavor of existence, since we're all social animals by nature, why not have your own? Why not take the initiative? And in the stationary starting and stopless range. The stationary starting and stopless range. Connotes whether an object is mobile by itself. A stationary object, unsurprisingly, stands still. A starting object may move at certain intervals or increments, or prompts, but is otherwise static. And something that is stopless, like perhaps photons, simply is purely kinetic. Okay. Now we have been looking at notes and trying to get all of the details of those hammered out, since it has been some time now since I've written them. And I've been working on the Panatrivial standard model predominantly, as well as the axiologic standard, but that's mostly done. We will get back to the gameplay. Alright. Clear the screen, pull back up OBS, and off we go. And it does look like we are not recording audio. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Let's try that. Very good. Alright. I didn't take note of it before, but I sure would hate if every single time I tried to use this plasmid, I suddenly had gaping hand wounds from icicles that apparently disappear as soon as you stop channeling it. I haven't really stopped to wonder. I haven't really paused to think about it very much. How exactly are plasmids called upon? Is it genuinely just directly like magic in your standard RPG, or is it something a little bit more involved? Because it is supposed to be genetic. Surely there's some sort of biologic process that goes into it other than me think bigly.
There has been tremendous pressure to regulate this plasmid business. There have been side effects, blindness, insanity, death. But what use is our ideology if it is not tested? The market does not respond like an infant, shrieking at the first sign of displeasure. The market is patient, and we must be too.
Is that just an atom needle? Or an Eve needle? I guess it is. Chlorophyllic solution. Alright, I think I've properly scraped this whole area up here. Splicers continue to crawl out of the walls. Let's try this in. Drop a quick save, I think. We all make choices, but in the end, our choices make us. That's quite a profound line coming from the rather consequence-disregarding nature. The rather consequence-disregarding ideology of laissez-faire capitalism. If one is to properly commit themselves to that axiom, that is a strong incentive to introduce some sort of regulatory structure. For we do understand, as an existential fact, that our decisions are necessarily bound to our options. And if those options are incompatible with the idyllic notion that is a mandate of maintaining any kind of that is a mandate in maintaining any kind of unstructured trade. Fully voluntary trade. Let's restart that. If you're going to truly commit yourself to that axiom, you have to recognize, as an existential fact, that every decision is necessarily based upon the options that are to hand. When those options are more limited, when those options limit the individual from participating in the idyllic manner, and the pursuit of self-preservation is instinctive in the overwhelming majority of a species, then there is need for supplementation if you wish to maintain the maximal amount of liberty. And therefore break from the laissez-faire element of laissez-faire capital. That was satisfying. Rare W for the guns in this game. Good lord, this is a tangle. Stay. Alright, let's see what we can invent. I guess. There's worse inventions. Worse trades of material. I'm sure it'll come in handy inevitably. The story of the you invent, though, intrigues me. I wonder if it came about in response to the abundance of random scraps.
Feels so great. I'm busy, I'm nauseous, and sometimes I'm even seeing things that aren't there.
And gain popularity amongst the common individual, because I can't imagine or foresee anyone of the upper class coming down here. To throw together remanufactured bits. Well, that area is cleaned out. Let's see about the others. Waterfall Grotto, I have been in here before, but I don't think I cleared it out. They're really stacking this place with U-Invent machines. Yeah. That must be automatic. Gonna chew through these first aid kits again. Man, I hope I'm around this area for a good while, otherwise that was not worth the trade of health. Yeah. What? Come on. They are actually buffing up the difficulty of these. I appreciate that. Getting a touch stale there for a second. And I am one who grew up on these kind of connect-em type puzzles. Well, I do appreciate them. They only have so much... Oh. You get him. Oh no. They bottomed my health out. That's properly unforgiving, though. Go ahead, walk in the middle of the fire. I'll appreciate it, I assure you. Not too bright, are you? Your office, you said. Ah, now you found me. Well done. Well, if I can find you. There you are. The dialogue is properly a gem. You know, I was thinking about it earlier. I imagine the justification for using a wrench in specific is probably so that we can do this. That's another bit of weaving in the game mechanics to the aesthetic and the presentation. Ooh. Oh yeah. Frags and heals. I'm all about that. Yes, please. I wish we could smash these normally. That'd be awfully convenient. Oh. Poor fallen critter. I knew you poorly. But I wish you the best in your 9 lives. That's not very free market of you. It's not very free market of you, Step Governor. Ooh, that's not good. That's quite some dedication. It is entirely impossible to square away the idea of total ownership of property, as if Rapture itself were simply the household of Mr. Andrew Ryan. And then at once hand the reins to anybody as though it were a nation state. More than anything, I believe that the failings of Rapture are not economic, are not environmental, are not economic. I think it's perhaps ideologic, in that the contrariety of vision is maintained as though it were a virtue. Either it is or it isn't a nation state. And if it is a nation state, you must understand, you must account for the fact that humanity is humanity with its own specific nature. And if it is simply private property, then none of this is for anything but the strict luxury of Andrew Ryan. All parts are mere vanity. It's a parallel not unfamiliar, especially with the ingress of corporations into all aspects of both economy and civilization. What is that? Oh. I am absolutely going to use that. What do you mean? That's not good. Yeah. Dealing some tough hands. Yeah, that's gonna shock me as well. Well, at least they're finally giving some value to those technicians, gene tonics. Well. Gotta be some shuffle where I can actually get through this. I genuinely do believe some of these are handed out as just, incompletable. Yeah. I'm gonna auto-hack this. I'm sure you really believe that. He's dead. You can stop. You can quit. What did I just... What even is that? It's a wheel. Truly acrobatic, that. Oh, gotcha. Ah. Ah. Well, 2 rounds is perfect. Where to go? Yeah. Oh! Yes! Yeah! That's what I'm talking about. Oh, hello.
The minute we came here, Masha started screaming, "Mama, Mama, what is that? What is that?" I thought she was having some kind of seizure. And then I realized, trees. Never saw one before. Thought they were monsters. Oh, Sammy, maybe we never should have come to this place.
I think it really depends upon what you value more than anything. That's not who I wanted to hear. Yeah.
I thought she was having some kind of seizure. And then I realized... Yes, I know about the lockdown. It's absurd. Just give me a minute.
Gregory, don't come whining to me about market forces, and don't expect me to punish citizens for showing a little initiative. If you don't like what Fontaine is doing, well, I suggest you find a way to offer a better product.
This particular piece has ideas of technocracy baked right into it. If techno-anarchism if fully autonomous technologic solutions by way of markets is your idea of a solution to the very real consequences of products. You are guaranteeing that every single difficulty, trial, issue that your citizen may face, that others who are not mere means to an end, but ends in themselves, even per the base ideology that Andrew Ryan is building upon, will be at the absolute whim of whoever is on the scene first. It's strict opportunism. Once more, I believe, demonstrating that ideologic conflict. Once more clarifying that ideologic contradiction. I should have known this was going to be an arena.
I'm gonna need you to listen to me. I know sort of botanist, but I think Ryan has just killed Arcadia. The man's put something foul into the air. Bottom of the ocean, Bio. All the oxygen comes from the trees. No trees, no oxygen. Give me a spell to think. Ryan's woman in Arcadia is an old Betty named Langford. An okay sort, but not above doing a dirty job for $1. If she's still kicking around, I'm sure she's gonna want to save her trees. After all, she planted the damn thing.
Well, that's definitely one way of burning the forest if it's not able to be held by you. If ever there was a subjective egoist, I think Andrew Ryan fits the bill. Thanks, lad. I'm glad you can determine my winning or not by my smell. What are these masks? I can see that religion wasn't strictly Christian here. Alright, where you going? Standard procedure, he says. Where and... Ah, so you can go out in the water. I hope that I eventually get that plasmid that he's got. Wow, this whole place has really changed. I wish we could determine more from the effigies that they have. Correlating it with the various zodiac signs on the walls and the board masks that have been centered as something of a piece of worship. Alongside the alcohol and chlorophyllic solutions. Obviously there was some sort of natural worship. Obviously there was some sort of nature worship. But what variety is entirely unclear. And that they seem to be hanging, covered in blood. It makes one wonder. Is this supposed to be some sort of sacrificial fetish? Or is it perhaps more intended that these are resemblances of women or the feminine aspect to be sacrificed? That is correct, Egg. That is what we are composed of. 3 holes and a manhole. I've been there. There's something shining? Nah, I think that was just a trick. Alright. Onwards and upwards, then. That reminds me. We have a new tape. Well, that explains exactly what we were looking at before, and why the imagery seems to be rather inconsistent. There is no sense of consistency, merely the identification of oneself with the powers of plasmids. That does invoke some curiosity. That's bad. That does evoke some necessary wonder, then, about... Oh. This level is unbeatable. Alright, then. About how the seeming spiritual aspect, about how the seeming appearance of ghosts and all sorts of specters plays into the faith of the Saturnine. It would be nice to have all of this ammo. But I am fresh out. It is something to me that even despite all of the nonsense that's happening here in Rapture proper, these machines not only work, but we just don't break into them. I promise you, if I were put in this place, I would be tipping them, smashing them, crashing them. Whatever it takes. Who's gonna stop me?
My trees. It wasn't you, was it? No.
I promise. Yep. Spot on.
To save the trees, it's a genetic vector that... Oh, look who I'm talking to. Could you find a sample of Rosa Gallica for me? Look in the grotto. I've got to keep working while there's time.
I guess.
They dress up in leaves and call themselves the Saturnine. Please. They drink human blood and chant, harness the flame.
Oh, finally I get to use my shotgun. Yeah. No, go ahead. I'll save my ammo. You guys can face the bots. I'll just enjoy myself, thanks. That's what I'm talking about. Where'd you go? No, I promise you did not spook me. Freddy Krueger looking head ass. Now where's this bloody rose I'm supposed to be finding? A dancing around the proximity mines? Well, that's inconvenient. Well, I guess I better finish this quest first. Damn. I'm glad it's like the 60s or whatever, because that comment did not age well. Oh, I've already been here. Cool. Can I just fall without... Yeah! No damage. Alright, where are we going? Rose, rose, rose. Where are we rosing? Not that way, I guess, but I do need to invent. That is not a you invent. Okay. I wonder. I don't have the incinerate class, but never mind. That'd be it. They shocked themselves to death. Incredible. What? Oh. Nice. Very nice. Well, as neat as that is, I'll pass, thanks. Everything. There's that you invent. What's this? Crash. Gotta hack that real quick. Perfect. There we go. Okay. How many of these do I have? Yeah, whatever. I'll take it. Ding, 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 ding.
I don't care where she's gone. Who is it? Don't you disrespect me!
Bet. Mad disrespect.
Brought the Rosa Gallica?
Mm-hmm.
What are you waiting for? An engraved invitation? Send it through the pneumo.
A rose to my suite.
This is perfect. Perfect. Come on up to my office. I'm letting you into the house. I think I've got just the thing to put the green back in this forest.
They're really overhyping these, I think. Those are cool little features, but hacking is just not that hard.
Damn place those pagan won't steal. Paper towels, ink pots, witch hazel, chlorophyll solution, even my back issues of National Geographic. They're feathering their disgusting little shrines with it, I suppose. Sick bastards. They dress up in leaves and call themselves the Saturn. Who says you can't teach an old hound new tricks? This batty plant woman spends 4 years coming up with ways engine times the atom bomb times Eve with a serpent. Let's go see what it can do.
I think one of the virtues of this whole story is the fact that even the supposed heroines of it, those who are at least on your side, as you can perceive it, are themselves quite dubious. Rather than simply painting the allies you might gain as black or white, good or bad, they're very much of the time, very much furnishing, very much furnished by the same reality that you dwell in. Instead of apart from it, strictly heroic by our own standards, and yet quite capable, quite efficacious, and even able to be put to your ends. That's admirable. Hey, yo, what up?
We made a business deal, you and I, did we not? Money changed hands. Let me read to you from the agreement. Section 3, subsection 4.
Mr. Rite.
Ryan Industries maintains exclusive rights to the creation, use, and exploitation of the Lazarus Vector. Ownership of civilization.
Wait, no, please.
Without it, madness.
Nine, 4, 6, 5.
Every time we get a yard ahead, Ryan goes and moves the goal line down to the other side of the field.
9, 4, 5, 7. I see. What a waste of a life.
I've been killing trees for 25 years. At Berkeley back in the 20s, on the Japs at Iwo Jima. But I never brought one back from the grave before. I did, Becky. Mama's gonna build her first damn Frankentree. I'm gonna call my little creation the Lazarus Vector. Maybe it'll bring the old gal's career back from the dead as well.
What's the point of being a damn genius if the only ones around to appreciate it are a bunch of spliced up morons? I've cracked the vector, or at least I'm 99% certain I have. I just need a bud of Rosa gallica to confirm my analysis. Distilled water, a bit of chlorophyll, and enzymes extracted from Apis mellifera. That's right, sweetheart. Honeybee spit.
Tapping not only the capacity to build out one's genetic code as they desire from the ground up. Mete out physical alteration. Physical alteration. Exactly as one would have it. But to even defeat death itself is indisputable evidence of the brilliance that knowledge can bring about. And yet, as we experience it not only from the perspective of Jack, but also intellectually,
I've been killing trees for 25 years. At Berkeley back in the 20s, on the jabs at Iwo Jima. But I never brought one back from the grave. I did, Becky. Mama's gonna build her first damn thanking tree. Call my little creation the Lazarus Vector. Maybe it'll bring the old gal's career back from the dead as well.
it is impossible not to take note of that recurring theme of the Great Chain as it sweeps people to and fro, changes the very landscape upon which, changes the very substrate upon which life itself is dependent. But also presents the challenge, yet in every aspect of life, there is a certain amount of adaptation socially, interpersonally, biologically, that is required for stability, coherency, longevity. While there is space for the boundless potentiality that our species is capable of, it is impossible to ignore if you have any care for your own survival or the peril of anything you care about. To ignore such things. To act in spite of and disregarding to act in spite of and to the disregard of such. To act in spite of and in ignorance of such fundamental realities. I am actually looking forward to, for a change, fighting one of these big daddies. I think it'll be a good show. He's not there? Okay. I guess I did get them all, eh? Ah, yes. Forgot that one. Something I glossed over, but I think also needs some note, is the absolute dispensation of another's life. As though it were entirely without purpose. As though Langford herself were his property. I don't think I'll harp on it any further from here. But if the only... I've heard many critiques of Andrew Ryan's
Arcadia's a big place, but mostly rural. If you're looking for something in particular, I'd start at the farmer's market.
ideology. And many have ascribed it to objectivism or some variant of egoism. Laissez-faire capitalism. I think more than anything, it's simply strict egoism. If you disagree with him, you are immediately and imminently an opponent. Not merely a competitor. Certainly not a peer. But rather an obstacle to negotiate. That and only that. Utterly despicable. Well, welcome to the farmer's market. At least I can get $1. If I can get $1. This would be a great place for the kinesis. Ah, nothing like glue. Now, if only I could find a brown paper bag. These poor pumpkins are in quite the state. Damn, I didn't need that today. Shame. Are you really on their side? Really? You're about to be on my side. That's not good. Yeah. Well then. I think I'm properly boned. Yep, I'm getting out of here. Sayonara. Yeah, I'll pay for that. I need a heal right quick. Let's do that. Come on now, don't... Ugh. At least I wasn't already at full health. But how did that alarm trigger, I must ask? I don't see any cameras anyplace.
Now, I'm a woman of science, but I'm also a woman who's not afraid of turning a buck or two. Ryan said if I could boost profits in Arcadia, part of the up would ride on my hip. So I get to thinking, we're paying for oxygen when we got photosynthesizing trees. Hell, we can even sell the extra to the rest of the city and undercut the other guys. Ryan will like that for sure. Fontaine's people have moved into the O2 biz tooth and claw.
A mere pawn. Ooh. Now I could do with that. I think I'll go with consumption rate. I have enough machine gun ammo that I can do the bit. Sylvan Wonderland, a place to get away. They utilize surface imagery. Is that a satyr? And also the imagery of myth. In a place that is intended to be fully free from such limitations. Another curious contradiction. Once more, whoever was putting in the design and narrative direction very clearly had a strong sense of purpose. Where'd you go? Well, I whiffed that. Let's see if we can do better. Yeah, where'd you go? I'd like to take your photo. I guess they're off then. I see the Saturn IX have also invaded this place too. They certainly made something of it, that's for sure. That's no good. Just in time. I find it humorous that the safe is easier to crack than half the other stuff I've been working on. Alright, well, was it worth it? Yes, sir, it was! Alright. I'll happily have that. And I'll be pepped up for a little bit too. This is definitely an arena. I'm not ready for this.
What makes something like me? I look at genes all day long, and never do I
Yikes.
see a blueprint of secret. I could blame the Germans, but in truth, I did not find tormentors in the prison camp, but kindred spirits. These children have awoken something inside that for most is beautiful and natural, but in me is an abomination. My maternal instinct.
Well, I suppose that could be an indictment of her. Before we move on, because we are in another hour and 30 minutes, I need to take a quick recess. I'll be right back. We'll probably get on to finishing up with the notes, the review of the notes, and then we'll close it out, I think. I'll have to check how far in the game we are. I don't think that we'll finish Bioshock, at least in this spate. But that does leave us a good bit to come back to if we should have some interest in it. In the meantime, I'll be back. having taken a look at what we have left to review insofar as my notes, and the amount of time that we have already spent on everything that we've accomplished here, I think that it is actually perhaps a fine idea to call it cut for the day. We have played multiple levels of Bioshock with still over half of the game left, which is not an indictment for the developers. It's been a good run so far, but it has definitely taken its time. And I imagine that after the many dozens of highlights and shorts that will be produced out of it, the audience, that is you all, will probably be quite full on Bioshock, at least for a while. So I think it's best to make my summary comments on the experience of Arcadia, and then Bioshock Remastered as a whole. Arcadia was quite the place. Actually, I'll pull up the game for this. That way we can have that going. And it's not recording the audio again. Awesome sauceum. And we'll fix that. There we go. As far as Arcadia goes, before we move into the... before we were to move into the market, it has made itself very much... It has been an experience of verdant wilderness, blended inexorably with the advent of technology, the true bringing to the knees of evolutionary life, to the pursuits and advents of mankind. And in that, just as swiftly as it is put into place, it is able to be taken away, and not only that, but the very creator herself, Langsford the scientist, put to the axe. The tale that is spun herein is one of creation and destruction in equal measure. Easy come, easy go. As far as Bioshock Remastered itself, the whole game is a masterpiece. The whole game is a masterpiece in philosophy, at least, and overall social commentary on the forces and sources of humankind's interventions, not only amongst themselves, but also with reality as an instrument. The consequences that these can summon, and the inevitabilities that those consequences bring about. Social, economic, technologic, it covers it all. And that is an ambitious project that I cannot... And that is an ambitious project that cannot... And that is an ambitious project that cannot be understated, not only in regards to its impact, not only in regards to its material as itself, but also upon humanity, if one stops to consider it. If one should stop to consider it. As far as the notes go, we'll come back over to that. Close that out. Ah, yes, we had that closed too. But that is no matter. We'll get right back to it. I'll quickly save so that if we should want to come back, we can. And if not, I can carry it on in my own time. wrap that up right quick. And then finish here. As far as we've covered today, insofar as the notes go, the development, insofar as what we have covered today in our notes for the Threefold Manifold tabletop role-playing game, we have clarified, we have elucidated some of the base notions that have went into leveling the topmost ability scores of physique, intercatenation, and metataxis. We have discussed some of the core ideas of, we have discussed some analogs to, we have discussed the decision for what kind of die, we have discussed the decision for what kind of dice, 2d10, that we will be using an analog towards inspiration, critical success, and critical failure. A banking system, therefore, scaling and gritting and scaling an environment maps and creatures on the basis of a universal metric. How contested roles fit into such a framework? A little side project I did with just drawing some weapons ideas. And categorizing all equipment based upon and categorizing all sorts of things that can go into inventory based upon, and categorizing all of the things that can go into one's inventory based upon their actual characteristics. The ideas that spawned them, and the refinements as we went along throughout. And the refinements as we progress towards bringing them into a scope and scale. And the refinements as we began to polish it into something that could actually be employed per a gameplay rule set. And with that all being said, I thank you all for attending today. And with that all being said, I thank you all for attending here today at the Chains Wait. Bioshock and ttrpg development all together, with a strong focus on inventory. If you like today's content, I hope that you consider giving us a like, giving us a subscribe, and maybe seeing about our social media, sharing it. If 2 people share it to 2 people, and those 2 people share it to 2 more people, this channel and everything that it stands for, not to mention the community that can be founded upon it, will blossom. We have Discord, an entire server dedicated to drive, design, and development, and all of the things that go along inside of that, and all the things that go along with that and inside of that. We have X, or Twitter if you prefer, Instagram, and soon we'll be on Discord, BitChute, and we are on Spotify as well. If you think you might want to give us... If you think it's worth more time than just your attention, and perhaps sharing it on social media, we also have venues for donations. We have Stream Elements, which is able to be made just as a one-time which is able to be made as just a one-off spend, which is able to be made as just a one-off donation, or if you want something more on a subscriptive model, and you want something in return for it, we always have Patreon. If you want to start off, we have the Proponent level, not to mention the Exponent and Ultraponent, which give you even more, and include everything from Proponent forward. If you join in at $5 a month, you'll get your name listed at the end of every single stream and video that we put out. You'll be able to participate in any kind of polls where I might want your ideas directly for those who are in the know about the threefold manifold. And you'll be able to watch all of this content ad-free, completely and totally. So, with that, having come to the end of the chain's wait, this has been Kairos. Never miss your opportunities.